The storm hit so fast that Davies barely had time to realize her car was sliding off the road before she found herself buried hood-deep in a snowdrift. Her perfectly manicured hands gripping the steering wheel like it might somehow save her from this nightmare. She sat there for a moment, her heart pounding, watching the windshield wipers struggle against the thick blanket of white that just kept coming. The GPS had died 10 minutes ago. Her phone showed one bar of service that flickered in and out like a candle in the wind, and she had absolutely no idea where she was except somewhere in rural Montana, which might as well have been the surface of Mars for all the good it did her. Davies, CEO of Davies Technologies, a woman who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar deals before breakfast, was completely and utterly lost in a snowstorm. The irony was not lost on her, though she was too cold and too scared to appreciate it properly. She tried the engine again. Nothing. Just a sad clicking sound that seemed to mock her expensive German engineering. Her feet were already going numb in her designer heels, completely inappropriate for this weather but perfect for the tech conference she had been driving from in Seattle. She was supposed to have flown, of course, but the idea of a scenic drive through the mountains had seemed romantic at the time. That was 4 hours and one major weather system ago. The temperature in the car was dropping fast. She could see her breath now, little clouds of condensation that reminded her she was very much alive and very much in danger of not staying that way if she did not figure something out. She grabbed her phone, praying for signal. 1 bar became 2, then back to 1, then nothing. She tried anyway, dialing emergency services with fingers that were already starting to shake. Nothing. The call would not connect. Catherine felt something she had not felt in years, not since she was a scared kid growing up in foster care, bouncing from home to home. Real, genuine fear. Not the kind you feel when a deal might fall through or a stock price dips. The kind that comes from understanding that nature does not care about your bank account or your business acumen. She was considering her options, none of them good, when she saw it. A light. Faint, flickering through the sheets of snow, but definitely there. A house, maybe, or at least a structure of some kind. It could not have been more than a few hundred yards away, though in this weather it might as well have been miles. Catherine made a decision. She grabbed her purse, wrapped her cashmere coat tighter around herself, and pushed open the car door. The wind hit her like a physical force, stealing her breath and nearly knocking her back into the seat. Snow immediately found its way into her shoes, soaking through her stockings. She gasped at the cold, then started walking. It was the longest few hundred yards of her life. Every step was a battle against the wind, the cold, and the snow that came up past her ankles in places. Her legs burned, her face felt like it was being scrubbed with ice, and she lost a shoe somewhere along the way but could not even think about stopping to look for it. She just kept her eyes on that light, praying it was real and not some hypothermia-induced hallucination. When her hand finally touched the wooden railing of what appeared to be a porch, she almost cried with relief. She stumbled up the steps, one shoe on and one shoe off, and pounded on the door with hands that barely had feeling left in them. "Please," she called out, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Please, I need help." For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then she heard footsteps inside, heavy boots on wooden floors, and the door swung open. The man who stood there was not what she expected, though she was not sure what she had expected. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing worn jeans and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with old scars and new calluses. His dark hair was slightly too long, falling into eyes that were an unusual shade of gray-green, and his jaw was covered in a few days' worth of stubble. He looked like he had walked off the set of some rugged outdoor catalog, except real. Solid. The kind of man who looked like he could fix things with his bare hands. "Jesus," he said, his voice deep and rough. "Get in here. What the hell are you doing out in this?" Catherine did not need to be told twice. She practically fell through the doorway, and he caught her by the elbow, steadying her with a grip that was firm but somehow gentle. The warmth of the house hit her like a wall, and she started shaking even harder as her body tried to figure out what to do with the sudden change in temperature. "My car," she managed through chattering teeth. "It went off the road. I saw your light. Okay, let me look at you." He guided her toward what looked like a living room dominated by a wood stove that was putting out blessed heat. "Can you feel your fingers and toes?" "Barely," she admitted. "That is actually good. Means nothing is frozen yet." He disappeared for a moment and came back with a thick blanket, which he wrapped around her shoulders before kneeling down to look at her feet. His eyebrows went up when he saw she was missing a shoe. "You walked here like this?" "I did not exactly have a choice." He made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been something else, then gently lifted her foot. His hands were warm and rough and surprisingly careful as he examined her for frostbite. "You are incredibly lucky." "Stupid, but lucky. This storm is not playing around. We are supposed to get 2 feet before morning." "Trust me, I am aware," Catherine said. Now that the immediate crisis was passing, she was becoming more aware of her surroundings. The house was small but well-maintained, with furniture that looked handmade and lived in. There were toys scattered in one corner, picture books stacked on a shelf, and what looked like a child's drawing taped to the wall near the kitchen. "Do you have a phone? Mine is not getting service." "Landline went out about an hour ago. Storm knocked down some lines, but you are not going anywhere tonight anyway. That car of yours might as well be in another state. Nothing is moving until this passes." The reality of the situation was starting to sink in. She was stuck here, in this stranger's house, for who knew how long. With no way to contact anyone, no way to get help, completely at his mercy. It should have terrified her, but something about the way he was looking at her with more concern than anything else made her feel oddly safe. "I am Derek, by the way," he said, standing up and offering her his hand. "Derek Richardson, Catherine Davies." She took his hand, noting the calluses and the strength in his grip. "Thank you for letting me in. I do not know what I would have done if you had not been here." "Probably frozen to death in your fancy car," he said bluntly. "No offense. None taken. You are probably right." A sound from deeper in the house caught her attention, a small voice, worried and young. "Dad, what is happening? I heard knocking." "It is okay, buddy. We just have a guest for the night. She got caught in the storm." A boy appeared in the doorway, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with dark hair like his father and the same unusual gray-green eyes. He was wearing pajamas covered in dinosaurs and holding a stuffed bear that looked like it had seen better days. He stared at Catherine with open curiosity. "Hi," Catherine said, trying for a smile despite her chattering teeth. "Your lips are blue," the boy observed. "Jake, do not be rude," Derek said, but there was affection in his voice. "I am not being rude, I am being observational. That is what Miss Peters says at school, observational." Catherine found herself laughing despite everything. "Well, your observation is correct. I am very cold." "Dad can fix it. He fixes everything." The absolute confidence in the boy's voice made something squeeze in Catherine's chest. "I am working on it, buddy. Can you go get the spare clothes from the dresser in my room, the thermal ones?" Jake nodded seriously and disappeared back down the hall. Derek turned back to Catherine. "You need to get out of those wet clothes. You are still losing body heat. The bathroom is down the hall, first door on the right. Jake is bringing some things that will be way too big, but at least they will be warm and dry." Catherine wanted to argue to maintain some shred of dignity, but she was too cold and too practical. "Thank you." Jake returned with an armful of clothes, thermal underwear that would indeed be comically large on her, thick socks, and a sweatshirt that looked like it had seen better days. Derek added a pair of sweatpants to the pile. "Take your time. There is hot water if you want a shower, though it might sting a bit when the feeling comes back into your extremities." Catherine gathered the clothes and made her way to the bathroom. It was small but clean, with more signs of a child in residence. Toy boats lined the edge of the tub, and there was a step stool in front of the sink decorated with cartoon sharks. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and winced. Her carefully styled hair was a disaster, her makeup was running, and she looked like she had aged 10 years in the last hour. She stripped off her designer clothes, wincing as fabric pulled away from cold skin, and stepped into the shower. Derek had been right. The hot water stung like needles as sensation returned to her feet and hands, but it was the most wonderful pain she had ever experienced. She stood under the spray until she finally stopped shivering, until her fingers could move properly again, until she felt remotely human. When she emerged, dressed in Derek's clothes that were indeed ridiculously large on her 5'6" frame, she felt like a different person. The sweatshirt hung off one shoulder, the sweatpants had to be rolled up multiple times, and she was swimming in fabric. But she was warm. She was alive. And that counted for everything. She found Derek and Jake in the kitchen. Derek was making something on the stove that smelled incredible, and Jake was setting the table with the careful concentration of a child given an important task. "Feeling better?" Derek asked, glancing over his shoulder. Something flickered in his eyes when he saw her, there and gone too fast for her to identify. "Much better. Thank you for all of this. I know I am intruding. You are surviving. There is a difference." He stirred whatever was in the pot. "Hope you like chili." "It is pretty much my specialty on snow days. It smells amazing." "It is the best chili in the whole world," Jake announced proudly. "Dad makes it with secret ingredients. 3 kinds of beans and a dash of cinnamon," Derek said. "Not that secret. Dad, you are not supposed to tell people." Jake looked genuinely scandalized. Catherine found herself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in hours. There was something about watching this little domestic scene that made the terror of the last hour feel very far away. "Your secret is safe with me." They sat down to eat at a small wooden table that looked handmade, probably by Derek himself. The chili was indeed excellent, rich and warming, and exactly what she needed. Catherine could not remember the last time she had eaten anything that did not come from a 5-star restaurant or a catered corporate event, and she was surprised to find this simple meal was better than all of them. "So, what were you doing out in this weather?" Derek asked, keeping his tone conversational. "Driving back from Seattle, there was a tech conference. I thought taking the scenic route would be nice." She shook her head at her own foolishness. "I checked the weather, but it said the storm was not supposed to hit until much later." "Mountain weather changes fast. You are from the city?" "San Francisco. Born in Boston, but I have been in California for about 10 years now." "That explains the shoes," Jake said helpfully. "Jake," Derek warned, but Catherine laughed. "He is right. Very wrong shoes for Montana." "I learned that the hard way." "What did you do in San Francisco?" Derek asked. There was something in his tone that made her think he was being polite, but did not really care about her life in the city. Like it was so far removed from his reality that it barely mattered. For some reason, Catherine found herself not wanting to tell him she was a CEO. Not wanting to see his expression change when he realized just how much money and power she wielded in her normal life. Here, in this warm kitchen, wearing his 2 large clothes and eating his homemade chili, she did not want to be Catherine Davies, billionaire tech mogul. She just wanted to be Catherine, the woman who almost froze to death in a snowstorm. "I work in tech," she said, which was not exactly a lie. "Software development, mostly. What about you?" "I am a carpenter. I build furniture, do renovations, that kind of thing. It is not glamorous, but it pays the bills." He glanced at Jake with obvious affection. "Keeps us going." "Dad made everything in this house," Jake said proudly. "The table, the chairs, my bed, the bookshelf, everything. He is the best builder in the whole county." "I have some competition, buddy, but I appreciate the vote of confidence." Catherine looked around the kitchen with new eyes, noticing the craftsmanship in the cabinets, the way everything fit together with a precision that spoke of real skill. "This is beautiful work." Derek shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "It is what I know how to do." After dinner, Jake was dispatched to brush his teeth and Derek began cleaning up the kitchen. Catherine tried to help, but he waved her off. "You nearly died tonight. You get a pass on dishes." "I feel useless just sitting here." "Then sit there and tell me about San Francisco." "I have never been west of Denver." So Catherine did. She talked about the city, about the bay and the bridges, about the fog that rolled in every afternoon and the sea lions at Fisherman's Wharf. She found herself editing out the parts about her penthouse apartment and her corner office, focusing instead on the little things. The coffee shop on the corner where they knew her order, the bookstore she liked to browse on Sundays, the park where she sometimes went to think. Derek listened, his hands moving methodically through the dishes, and asked questions that showed he was really paying attention. Not the surface-level questions people usually asked at cocktail parties, but genuine curiosity about what it was like to live in a place so different from here. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "When you travel?" "Sometimes, but honestly, I travel so much that nowhere really feels like home anymore. It is just places I sleep between meetings." Something in her voice made him look at her more closely. "That sounds lonely." It was such a simple observation, but it hit her like a punch to the chest, because he was right. She was lonely. She had been lonely for years, but she had been too busy building her empire to notice or care. She had friends, or at least people she called friends, but they were all in the industry. Their conversations were all about valuations and market share and the next big thing. When was the last time someone had asked her how she really was? When was the last time she had sat at a kitchen table and eaten homemade chili and felt like she was part of something normal and real? "Yeah," she said quietly. "I guess it is." Jake returned, teeth brushed and pajamas still on, and climbed onto Derek's lap with the easy affection of a well-loved child. "Is the storm over yet?" "Not even close, buddy. You can hear it if you listen." They all fell silent, and sure enough, Catherine could hear the wind howling around the house, the snow pelting against the windows. It sounded like the world was ending out there, but in here, in this warm kitchen with these two people she had known for less than 2 hours, she felt safer than she had in a long time. "Where is the lady going to sleep?" Jake asked. "I am going to take the couch," Catherine said quickly. "I do not want to put you out any more than I already have." "You can have my room," Derek said. "I will take the couch." "Absolutely not. You have already done too much. You nearly froze to death. You need actual rest, not a night on a lumpy couch." They stared at each other for a moment, and Catherine saw the stubbornness in his jaw that probably matched her own. Two people used to getting their way, neither willing to back down. Then Jake yawned hugely, breaking the tension. "How about we figure it out after we get this guy to bed?" Derek said, standing up with Jake still in his arms. "Come on, buddy, time for sleep." "But I want to hear more about San Francisco," Jake protested, though his eyes were already drooping. "Tomorrow," Derek promised. "If the storm keeps up, we will have plenty of time for stories." Catherine watched them disappear down the hallway, heard the murmur of Derek's voice reading a bedtime story, and felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Longing, maybe, or envy. For this simple life, this uncomplicated love between father and son, this sense of belonging somewhere that was not a corporate office or a boardroom. She walked over to the window and looked out at the storm. She could barely see anything through the snow, just white chaos and darkness beyond. Her car was out there somewhere, buried and forgotten. Her phone was charging on the counter, still without service. Her entire world, her billion-dollar company, her responsibilities, they all felt very far away. And for the first time in years, Catherine did not mind. Derek returned, moving quietly in the way of parents who have just put a child to bed. "He is out like a light. Kid could sleep through an earthquake." "He is wonderful," Catherine said. "You have done an amazing job with him." Something complicated crossed Derek's face. "I do my best. It is just the two of us, so I do not have much choice." Catherine heard what he did not say. The mother was not in the picture. She wanted to ask but did not want to pry, so she stayed quiet. Derek seemed to make a decision. His mom left when he was 2. Decided small town life and motherhood were not for her. She wanted bright lights and excitement, and I guess me and Jake were not enough. He said it matter-of-factly, but Catherine heard the old pain underneath. I am sorry. Don't be. We are better off, honestly. Jake does not even remember her, and I would rather be alone than with someone who does not want to be here. Catherine thought about her own romantic history. A string of relationships with men who wanted the idea of her more than the reality, who were attracted to her power and money, but uncomfortable with the woman underneath. Men who felt threatened by her success, or who wanted to be taken care of by her wealth. She could not remember the last time someone had just wanted her, Catherine, the person behind the CEO title. I understand that more than you know, she said. They stood there for a moment, two people from completely different worlds, finding common ground in their loneliness. So about sleeping arrangements, Derek said finally. I really do not mind taking the couch. And I really do not mind taking it myself. How about a compromise? Do you have extra blankets? I can make myself comfortable in here. I have slept in worse places. Have you really, though? He raised an eyebrow, and she caught a glimpse of humor in those gray-green eyes. Okay, no, probably not, but there is a first time for everything. He studied her for a moment, then seemed to accept that she was not going to budge. All right. But you are taking the good pillows, and if you get uncomfortable, my room is at the end of the hall. I mean it. I will not mind. Deal. He brought her blankets and pillows, showed her where the bathroom was again, and made sure she had everything she needed. He moved with a quiet competence that Catherine found herself watching maybe more closely than she should. There was something attractive about a man who was so comfortable in his own space, so sure of himself without being arrogant about it. Thank you again, she said as he was about to head to bed. For everything, you saved my life tonight. Anyone would have done the same. I am not sure that is true, but I am glad you were the one here. Something passed between them, a moment of connection that felt more significant than it should given they were strangers. Then Derek smiled, and it transformed his whole face, making him look younger and more open. Get some sleep, Catherine. Things will look better in the morning. After he left, Catherine arranged her makeshift bed on the couch and lay down, pulling the blankets up to her chin. The wind still howled outside, but she felt warm and safe. She thought about calling her assistant, realized there was still no service, and felt a strange sense of relief. No one could reach her. No one knew where she was. For the first time in years, Catherine Davies was completely off the grid. She fell asleep listening to the storm and dreamed of gray-green eyes and calloused hands and a little boy who believed his father could fix anything. Morning came slowly, filtered through thick clouds and still falling snow. Catherine woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, which seemed impossible given she was in a stranger's house in the middle of nowhere. For a moment she was disoriented, struggling to remember where she was and how she had gotten here. Then it all came flooding back. The storm, the car, Derek's door opening to reveal warmth and safety. She sat up, pushing her hair out of her face, and found Derek in the kitchen. He was making breakfast, while Jake sat at the table working on what looked like a math worksheet. The domestic scene was so far from her usual morning routine of power meetings and coffee in the car that it felt like something from another life. Morning, Derek said, glancing over. Coffee. Please, I do not suppose you have any service on your phone, he shook his head. Still nothing. And we got about 18 inches overnight with more coming. You are stuck with us for a while, I'm afraid. Catherine should have felt anxious about that. Her company needed her, there were meetings scheduled, decisions to be made, but instead she felt something that might have been relief. Worse places to be stuck. Jake looked up from his math. Do you know what 7 times 8 is? I keep forgetting that one. Catherine walked over and looked at his worksheet. 56. The trick is to remember 7 times 7 is 49, then just add 7 more. That is what Dad said. Okay, that helps. He went back to his work with renewed concentration. Derek served up breakfast, scrambled eggs and bacon and toast, and they ate together at the small table. Catherine could not remember the last time she had eaten a meal that had not been some elaborate restaurant creation or sad desk lunch. This simple food, made with care and eaten in good company, was better than any Michelin-starred meal. "So what do we do today?" Jake asked. "Since we are all stuck inside." "You have schoolwork to finish," Derek reminded him, "and I have some furniture to sand in the garage." "Need to keep up with orders even when the weather is being difficult." "Can Catherine come see the garage?" Jake asked excitedly. "Dad makes amazing stuff." "I am sure Catherine does not want to watch me work," Derek said. "Actually, I would love to see what you do," Catherine said. And she meant it. When was the last time she had watched someone create something with their hands, something physical and real instead of lines of code and digital products? Derek looked surprised but pleased. "All right then. After Jake finishes his schoolwork, I will give you the grand tour." While Jake worked on his assignments, Catherine helped Derek clean up from breakfast. They worked in comfortable silence, and Catherine found herself hyper-aware of every time their hands brushed reaching for the same dish, every time they had to squeeze past each other in the small kitchen. Derek smelled like wood and coffee and something else, something that was just him, and it was doing strange things to her concentration. "So," Derek said as he dried a plate, "are you going to tell me what you really do?" "Because I am pretty sure most software developers do not drive cars that cost more than my house." Catherine felt her cheeks heat. "How do you know what my car costs? I might live in the middle of nowhere, but I am not completely cut off from the world." That was a Mercedes S-Class, probably recent model year. Not exactly standard issue for regular folks. She could have deflected again, but something about the straightforward way he asked made her want to be honest. "I own a tech company, Davies Technologies. We develop software for enterprise clients, some consumer products. It has done well." Derek was quiet for a moment. "Catherine Davies, I thought your name sounded familiar. You are that Catherine Davies, the billionaire who was on the cover of Forbes last year." "Guilty." She waited for his reaction, for the distance that usually came when people learned who she really was. But Derek just continued drying dishes. "Huh. Well, that explains the shoes and the car. Does not explain why you are doing my dishes, though." "Because you saved my life and gave me a place to stay. Seems like the least I can do." "Pretty sure billionaires do not usually do their own dishes. This one does. Or at least, this one used to before I had people who did that for me." She put away the last plate. "I grew up in foster care, Derek. I did not come from money. Everything I have, I built myself. And sometimes I miss the simple things, like washing dishes with someone and eating homemade meals and feeling like a normal person." He turned to look at her fully, really seeing her. "That is lonely too, is not it, being that successful?" "Lonelier than being broke ever was," she admitted. "At least when I was struggling, I had other people struggling with me. We were all in it together. Now I am at the top and it is cold up there. No one understands, or if they do, they want something from me." "I do not want anything from you," Derek said quietly. "Just so you know, you are safe here, whether you are a billionaire or a software developer or anything else. Here you are just Catherine, the woman who nearly froze to death on my doorstep." She smiled at that. "Best introduction I have had in years." Jake finished his schoolwork and bounded over. "Can we go to the garage now, please?" The garage was attached to the house, accessible through a door off the kitchen. It was not fancy, but it was well organized, with tools hung neatly on pegboards and several pieces of furniture in various stages of completion. The smell of sawdust and wood varnish was strong, and Catherine found it oddly comforting. Derek showed her what he was working on, a beautiful dining table made from reclaimed barn wood. His hands moved over the surface as he explained his process, pointing out the grain of the wood and how he had fitted the pieces together. Catherine watched his hands, so careful and precise, and felt something warm unfold in her chest. "This is incredible," she said, running her own hand over the smooth surface. "Who is it for?" a couple in town getting married. They wanted something that would last, that they could pass down to their kids someday. He said it simply, but Catherine heard the pride in his voice. He was not just making furniture. He was making something meaningful, something that would be part of people's lives for years to come. That is beautiful. What you do, creating things that last and matter, it is really beautiful. Derek looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. You create things too. Technology that changes how people work and live, that matters. It is not the same. My products will be obsolete in 5 years. Your table will still be here in 50. Different does not mean less valuable. They stood there in the garage, snow falling outside, surrounded by the smell of wood and the quiet hum of the space heater Derek had running, and Catherine felt something shift. This man, this carpenter from Montana who made furniture with his hands and raised his son alone and opened his door to strangers in storms, saw her in a way no one else did. Not as a billionaire or a CEO or a power player. Just as Catherine, a person trying to create something meaningful in the world. The day unfolded slowly, without the usual rush of her life in San Francisco. Jake played while Derek worked on his furniture, and Catherine found herself helping in small ways, holding boards steady while Derek measured, passing him tools when he needed them. They talked about nothing important, just easy conversation that flowed naturally. Derek told her about growing up in Montana, about learning carpentry from his grandfather, about how he had ended up with this house and this life. Catherine talked about Boston, about the foster homes and the scholarships that had gotten her into MIT, about building her company from nothing. Jake flitted in and out, bringing them pictures he had drawn or interesting rocks he had found in the yard before the snow got too deep. Every time he appeared, Derek's whole face softened, and Catherine saw the depth of love there. This man would do anything for his son. Everything he did, every choice he made, was filtered through what was best for Jake. Lunch was sandwiches and soup, another simple meal that tasted better than it had any right to. They ate in the kitchen while snow continued to pile up outside, and Catherine checked her phone for the 100th time. Still no service. Getting anxious, Derek asked, noticing. A little. My assistant must be losing her mind. I never go this long without checking in. World is not going to end if you take a day off. You would be surprised how many fires can start in 24 hours, and you would be surprised how well things can run without you if you let them. He said it gently, but Catherine heard the truth in it. She had built a good team. She trusted them. Maybe it was okay to let go for just a little while. That afternoon, the power went out. One moment they were sitting in the warm house, and the next everything went dark and silent. Jake let out a small sound of alarm, and Derek immediately moved to his side. It is okay, buddy. Remember what we talked about. This happens in big storms. We have got the generator for the essentials, and we have got the wood stove. We will be fine. He was calm and reassuring, already moving to light candles and check on the wood stove. Catherine watched him handle the crisis with such practiced ease and felt her respect for him grow even more. This was a man who could handle whatever life threw at him. The generator kicked on, but Derek kept it minimal to conserve fuel. Enough for the refrigerator and a few lights, but that was it. The house took on a different quality in the dimness, more intimate and cozy. They ended up spending the afternoon in the living room, Jake building elaborate structures with wooden blocks, while Derek, Reed, and Catherine found herself simply existing in the moment, something she had not done in years. As evening approached, Derek made dinner on the wood stove, a simple stew that simmered for hours and filled the house with the most amazing smell. They ate by candlelight, and Jake told elaborate stories about his day at school, complete with dramatic reenactments that had both adults laughing. After dinner, Derek suggested they play board games. They dug out an old set of Monopoly from a closet, and Catherine found herself getting genuinely competitive as they played. Jake was surprisingly ruthless, buying up properties and charging exorbitant rents, while Derek played with a conservative strategy that somehow always kept him in the game. Catherine went for the high-risk properties and ended up bankrupt, but she was laughing too hard to care. "You are a terrible Monopoly player for someone who runs a billion-dollar company," Derek teased. "In my defense, my real business strategy is much better than my Monopoly strategy." "Prove it." Another round. They played until Jake was yawning between turns, and Derek finally called it and sent him off to brush his teeth. Catherine helped clean up the game while Derek got Jake ready for bed, and then they found themselves alone again in the living room, lit only by candles and the glow from the wood stove. "This has been a really nice day," Catherine said. "Probably the best day I have had in longer than I can remember." Derek settled into the chair across from her, even without power and stuck in the middle of nowhere. Especially because of that. No phones, no meetings, no demands, just existing. It has been a long time since I just got to exist. "That is sad, Catherine. Everyone should get to just exist sometimes." "What about you? When do you get to just exist? You are raising a kid alone, running a business, keeping up with everything. That cannot be easy," he shrugged. "It is my life. I do not know anything else. Jake is my whole world. Everything I do is for him, to make sure he has a good life and feels loved and has opportunities. The hard parts are worth it. He is lucky to have you. I am lucky to have him. He is what got me through the worst time of my life after his mom left. Gave me a reason to keep going." They talked into the night, sharing stories about their lives, their fears, their dreams. Derek told her about wanting to expand his business, maybe hire an apprentice, teach someone else the craft he loved. Catherine talked about her company, about the new technologies they were developing, but also about her uncertainty. Did she really want to keep growing the company, keep chasing the next big thing? Or was there something else she was supposed to be doing with her life? "What would you do if you could do anything?" Derek asked. If money was not an object, Catherine thought about it. "I think I would want to help people. Really help them, not just sell them software. Maybe fund scholarships for foster kids, help them get the education I got. Give them the chances I was lucky enough to have. That sounds like something worth doing. What about you? If you could do anything?" "This," Derek said simply. "I would do exactly what I am doing. Making furniture, raising my son, living in this house I built with my own hands. I do not need anything more than what I have." Catherine felt something twist in her chest. Here was a man who was genuinely content with his life, who did not want more or bigger or better. He had found his place in the world and made peace with it. She had everything money could buy and was still searching for what he had already found. "That is a gift," she said quietly. "Being content. I do not think I have ever been content in my life. Maybe you have been looking in the wrong places." Their eyes met across the candlelit room, and Catherine felt the air change between them. It was not just attraction, though that was there too, simmering under the surface. It was connection, recognition. Two people seeing each other clearly and liking what they saw. Derek stood up. "It is late. We should probably get some sleep." Catherine nodded, not trusting her voice. She was feeling things she had not felt in years, and it scared her. This man, this life, it was so far from her world, and yet somehow it felt more real than anything she had experienced in a long time. That night, lying on the couch in the dark, Catherine thought about what it would be like to stay here. To wake up every morning to the smell of coffee and wood smoke, to spend days doing simple things with purpose, to be part of a family instead of an empire. It was impossible, of course. She had responsibilities, a company to run, a life waiting for her in San Francisco. But for just a moment, she let herself imagine what if. The next morning brought more snow and still no power or phone service. Catherine was starting to worry about her company, about her assistant who must be frantic by now, about all the responsibilities she was neglecting. But when she walked into the kitchen and saw Derek making breakfast while Jake chattered about his plans for the day, the worry faded. Whatever chaos was happening in San Francisco could wait. "Morning," Derek said, handing her a cup of coffee. Their fingers brushed, and Catherine felt the now familiar spark of awareness. Morning. How is it out there? Deep. We are probably looking at another day, at least before the roads are clear enough for any kind of travel. Hope you are not getting too sick of us. Not even a little bit. The truth of it surprised her. She should have been climbing the walls by now, desperate to get back to her life. Instead, she found herself hoping the storm would last just a little longer. They fell into an easy routine that day. Jake did his schoolwork, Derek worked on his furniture, and Catherine found herself helping around the house. She did laundry, made lunch, played games with Jake. Simple, domestic tasks that she would have considered beneath her notice in her normal life felt oddly satisfying here. In the afternoon, when Jake was napping, Derek asked if she wanted to learn some basic woodworking. Might as well learn something useful while you are stuck here. He showed her how to use a hand plane, how to smooth, rough wood into something beautiful. He stood behind her, his hands guiding hers on the tool, and Catherine could barely concentrate on what he was teaching her because she was so aware of his body behind hers, the warmth of him, the strength in his hands. "You are a natural," he said, his voice close to her ear. "I have a good teacher." He was still standing close, not moving away, and Catherine could feel the tension building between them. She wanted to turn around to see if he felt this too, but she was afraid. Afraid of what it meant, afraid of the complications, afraid of getting hurt. Derek seemed to sense her hesitation. He stepped back, putting professional distance between them. "Why do not you keep working on that while I check on Jake?" Catherine let out a breath she had not realized she was holding and focused on the wood in front of her, trying to calm her racing heart. That evening, after another simple dinner and more board games, Derek put Jake to bed and returned to find Catherine standing at the window, looking out at the still falling snow. "It is beautiful," she said. "I have never seen anything like it. Where I live, we do not get snow." "It is beautiful until you have to dig out your car," Derek said, coming to stand beside her. "But yeah, I never get tired of it. Something about a fresh snowfall that makes the world feel new." "I wish I could stay here," Catherine said, then immediately regretted it. "I mean, not here. I know you have your life and I have mine. I just mean I wish I could stay in this feeling, this peace." "Why can't you?" "Because I have a company to run, thousands of employees depending on me, investors, clients, responsibilities. I cannot just walk away from that." "I am not saying walk away. But maybe you do not have to carry all of it yourself. You built a good team, right? Maybe it is time to trust them more." Catherine turned to face him. "When I was in foster care, I learned that the only person I could really count on was myself. If I did not take care of myself, no one else would. That belief has driven everything I have done since, but it is also exhausting and lonely, and I do not know how to let go." Derek reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so gentle and intimate that it made her breath catch. "Maybe you start by letting one person in. Just one, and see what happens." "Derek," she whispered, not sure what she was asking for. "I know this is crazy," he said. "We have known each other for 3 days. You are from a completely different world. This does not make any sense. But I have not felt this way about anyone since Jake's mom left, and even then, I am not sure it was ever this real, this right. I feel it too, and it terrifies me. Me too." He smiled, and it was soft and honest. "But maybe that is how you know it is real. Because it scares you enough to matter." "What do we do about it?" Catherine asked. "When the snow clears and I have to go back to my life, I do not know, but maybe we figure that out when we get there. For now, can we just be honest about what this is? And what is this? Something special. Something worth seeing through." Derek moved closer, and Catherine found herself swaying toward him like he was magnetic north. "Catherine, can I kiss you?" She should have said no, should have maintained the distance, protected herself from the inevitable heartbreak when she had to leave. But she did not want to. For once in her carefully controlled life, she wanted to do something just because it felt right. "Yes," she said. Derek cupped her face in his hands, those calloused carpenter's hands that had created so much beauty, and kissed her. It was gentle at first, a question and an answer, and then it deepened into something more. Catherine melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, and kissed him back with all the loneliness and longing and hope that had been building inside her. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "Wow," Catherine said. "Yeah, wow." Derek rested his forehead against hers. "I have been wanting to do that since you showed up wearing my sweatshirt that first night. I have been wanting you to do that since you opened your door and let me in." They kissed again, slower this time, learning each other. Catherine felt like she was falling, like the ground had dropped away beneath her feet, but for once she was not scared. She trusted Derek to catch her. They ended up on the couch, wrapped in each other's arms, talking and kissing and talking some more. Derek told her about his dreams for the future, about wanting to give Jake a good life and teach him to build things with his hands. Catherine talked about her fears, about wondering if success was worth the cost, about wanting something more real than what her life had become. "I do not want this to end," Catherine said as the candles burned low. "I know it has to, but I do not want it to. Then we make sure it does not end. We find a way to make this work." "How? I live in San Francisco. You live here. That is not exactly an easy commute." "We will figure it out. People manage long-distance relationships all the time, and maybe one of us can relocate eventually, or we split time between both places. I do not know the details yet, but I know I am not letting you walk out of my life just because geography is complicated." "What about Jake? He has to come first. I would never ask you to disrupt his life." "Jake likes you. He has been asking me if you are going to stay. And honestly, I think it would be good for him to see me happy with someone, to see what a good relationship looks like. His mom leaving messed him up, even if he does not remember her. I want him to know that love does not always mean abandonment." Catherine felt tears prick her eyes. "I do not know how to do this. I have never been good at relationships. I do not know how to be what you need. Just be you. That is all I want. The real Catherine, not the CEO, just you." She kissed him again, pouring all her hopes and fears into it. Derek held her close, solid and real and present in a way no one else had ever been. They fell asleep on the couch together, tangled in each other and the blankets, and Catherine dreamed of a future that might actually make her happy. The next morning brought sun. Bright, brilliant sunshine that made the snow-covered world outside look like it had been dusted in diamonds. And with the sunshine came the sound of snowplows in the distance, working to clear the roads. "Storm is over," Derek said, standing at the window with his coffee. He did not sound happy about it. Catherine joined him, slipping under his arm like she belonged there. "Yeah, your phone working yet?" she checked. 3 bars and about 100 missed calls and messages. "Yeah, I guess I should call my office. And I should start digging out your car. See if we can get it running." Neither of them moved. "Derek, I meant what I said last night. I want to make this work." He turned to face her, serious and steady. "So do I, but that means dealing with the real world, your real life. Are you ready for that?" "I do not know, but I want to try." They stood there for a long moment, holding onto each other and this peaceful bubble they had built, knowing it was about to burst. Then Jake bounded into the room, excited about the sunshine and the prospect of building snowmen, and the moment passed. Catherine called her assistant, who nearly cried with relief at hearing her voice. Yes, she was fine. Yes, she was sorry for worrying everyone. No, she had not been kidnapped or killed, just stuck in a snowstorm with no service. She would be back in the office as soon as possible. The calls and emails started flooding in after that. Crisis after crisis that had seemed so urgent, decisions that apparently only she could make. Catherine dealt with them mechanically, her mind still in the warm kitchen with Derek and Jake, not on quarterly earnings and product launches. Derek spent the morning digging out her car with Jake's help. Catherine watched from the window, seeing them work together, Jake chattering constantly while Derek patiently shoveled. They looked so right together, so complete. Could she really be part of that? Did she even know how? By early afternoon, the car was free and the roads were clear enough for travel. Derek had gotten it started, though he warned her to drive carefully. The rental would need a thorough check when she got back to civilization. I guess this is it, Catherine said, standing by her car in borrowed clothes because her designer suit was still too wet to wear. Does not have to be, Derek said. Jake stood beside him, looking confused and sad. Are you leaving? Jake asked. But you just got here. Catherine knelt down to his level. I have to go back to my job, buddy, but I have had the best time here with you and your dad, best time I have had in years. Will you come back? She looked up at Derek, saw the hope and fear in his eyes that probably matched her own. I am going to try. If that is okay with you and your dad. It is more than okay, Derek said. Catherine stood and hugged him, breathing in the scent of him one more time. I will call you when I get to a hotel, and we will figure this out, I promise. I am holding you to that. One more kiss, sweet and sad and full of promise, and then Catherine was in her car, driving away from the small house, and the man and the boy who had somehow become so important to her in just a few days. The drive back to Seattle was long and gave Catherine too much time to think. What was she doing? She barely knew Derek. This was insane. She could not append her entire life for a man she had met in a snowstorm, but even as she thought it, she knew she was going to try. Because for the first time in her life, she wanted something more than success. She wanted connection. She wanted love. She wanted Derek and the life he represented. She checked into a hotel in Seattle and immediately called him. They talked for hours, making plans. Catherine would fly back to San Francisco, handle the most urgent business, and then come back to Montana. They would take it slow, figure out how to blend their lives together without rushing or making promises they could not keep. But they would try. That was what mattered. Over the next few weeks, Catherine flew back and forth between San Francisco and Montana. She started delegating more, trusting her team to handle things without her constant oversight. It was hard, giving up control, but every time she saw Derek's face light up when she arrived, every time Jake hugged her and told her about his week, it got a little easier. She met Derek's friends, became part of his community. Small town life was so different from what she was used to, but there was something lovely about knowing your neighbors, about supporting local businesses, about being part of something bigger than yourself. Derek came to San Francisco too, bringing Jake for a long weekend. Catherine showed them her city, the places she loved, the life she had built. She watched Derek take in her penthouse apartment, the art on the walls, the view of the bay, and worried he would feel overwhelmed or uncomfortable. But he just pulled her close and said, I am proud of you, of everything you have built. This is amazing. Jake was fascinated by everything, the cable cars and the Golden Gate Bridge and the sea lions. Catherine took them to all the tourist spots she usually avoided and saw her city through fresh eyes. It was beautiful. She had forgotten that. They met her executive team, who were initially skeptical of the carpenter from Montana, but warmed up when they saw how happy Catherine was. Her assistant pulled her aside and said, I have never seen you smile like this. He is good for you. The relationship was not without challenges. The distance was hard, the time zones were complicated, and there were moments when Catherine wondered if they were crazy for even trying. But every time they were together, it felt right, like she had found a missing piece of herself. 6 months after the snowstorm, Derek sat her down for a serious conversation. I have been thinking, he said, about what we are doing, how we are living. Catherine's heart sank. Here it came. The conversation where he admitted this was too hard, too complicated, not worth the effort. I love you, Derek continued. I love you so much that it scares me sometimes, and I see how hard you are working to make this relationship happen, flying back and forth, trying to be in 2 places at once. I see how exhausted you are. I can handle it, Catherine said quickly. It is worth it. I know you can handle it. You can handle anything, but you should not have to. So I have been thinking about relocating. Me and Jake. Moving to San Francisco or somewhere closer at least. I can build furniture anywhere. And Jake is young enough that changing schools would not be too disruptive. If you are willing to have us, I want us to be together. Really together, not just on weekends and phone calls. Catherine stared at him. You would do that. Leave Montana. Montana is just a place. You are my home now, you and whatever life we build together." She launched herself at him, kissing him hard, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, I want that. I want you here. I want us to be a real family. Are you sure? Because this is a big step. It changes everything." "I am sure. I have never been more sure of anything." They told Jake that night. He was worried at first about leaving his friends, his school, his home. But Derek talked to him about new adventures, about living near the ocean, about how Catherine would be there every day instead of just sometimes. And slowly, Jake came around. Especially when Catherine promised him his own room with a view of the bay and trips to see the sea lions whenever he wanted. The move happened over the next few months. Derek sold his house in Montana, and Catherine bought a larger place in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. Big enough for all of them, with space for Derek's workshop and a yard for Jake to play in. Close enough to the city for Catherine to work, but with the space and quiet Derek was used to, blending their lives was not always smooth. Jake struggled with his new school at first, missed his old friends. Derek found the pace of the Bay Area overwhelming sometimes, missed the quiet of Montana. Catherine was still learning how to be part of a family, how to balance work with home life, how to put people before profits, but they made it work. They had family dinners every night, even if Catherine had to take calls afterward. Derek set up his workshop and started building furniture again, gaining new clients who appreciated his craftsmanship. Jake made friends, joined soccer, started to thrive in his new environment. And Catherine, for the first time in her adult life, felt like she was living instead of just working. A year after the snowstorm, Derek proposed. Not with a flashy public gesture or an elaborate plan, but with a simple question on an ordinary Tuesday night after they had put Jake to bed. "Marry me," he said. "Make this official. Be my wife, my partner, Jake's stepmom. Build this life with me for real." The ring was beautiful, a simple band with a single diamond, nothing ostentatious or showy, exactly right for who Catherine had become since she met him. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony on the beach, with Jake as the ring bearer, and both of their communities gathered to celebrate. Catherine wore a simple white dress. Derek wore a suit he had bought specifically for the occasion, and Jake wore a miniature version of his dad's outfit that made everyone tear up. As she stood there on the beach, holding Derek's hands and promising to love him for the rest of her life, Catherine thought about the snowstorm that had brought them together. How she had been lost, literally and figuratively, and Derek had been the light that guided her home. How she had thought she had everything and realized she had nothing that really mattered. How close she had come to missing this, to driving past his house, to freezing alone in her expensive car. "I love you," she said, just for him. "You saved my life in so many ways." "You saved mine too," he whispered back. "I was just existing before you, now I am living." The kiss that sealed their marriage was perfect. Not because it was in front of an audience or because a photographer captured it, but because it was real and true and full of the love they had built together from that first night in the snowstorm. The years that followed were not always easy, but they were good. Catherine scaled back her role at the company, promoted her COO to CEO, and focused on the foundation she had started to help foster kids. She still worked, still created, still built, but now it was balanced with family dinners and Jake's soccer games and lazy Sunday mornings with Derek. Derek's furniture business grew, word of mouth bringing him more clients than he could handle. He hired apprentices, just like he had always wanted, teaching young people the craft he loved. His work was featured in magazines, sold in high-end galleries, but he never forgot why he did it or who he was doing it for. Jake thrived, growing into a smart, kind teenager who had inherited his father's work ethic and his stepmother's business sense. He never called Catherine Mom, and she never asked him to, but the love between them was real and deep. She was at every important moment, cheering from the sidelines, helping with homework, listening to teenage drama with patience she never knew she had. They had another child together 3 years after they married, a daughter they named Emma. Jake was thrilled to be a big brother, and watching Derek with a newborn again, seeing the gentle way he held their tiny daughter, made Catherine fall in love with him all over again. Life became a beautiful mix of her world and his. They split time between Marin County and Montana, buying back Derek's old house so they could spend summers there, giving the kids a taste of the small-town life Derek had loved. Jake taught Emma how to fish. Derek taught them both woodworking, and Catherine discovered that she loved Montana's wide-open spaces as much as she loved San Francisco's energy. On their 5th anniversary, Catherine and Derek sat on the porch of the Montana house, watching Jake and Emma play in the yard. The stars were out, brilliant and clear in a way they never were in the city. "Do you ever regret it?" Derek asked. "Giving up so much of your career for this life?" "Never," Catherine said, and meant it. "I did not give anything up. I traded one kind of success for another, better kind. I have everything I could possibly want right here. Even when the kids are being terrors and I am covered in sawdust and dinner is burning in the oven, especially then." She leaned into him, breathing in the familiar scent of wood and soap. "You know what the best part is? I am not lonely anymore. I have not been lonely in 5 years. That is worth more than any amount of money or success." "I am not lonely either," Derek said. "You and the kids, you are my whole world. Everything good in my life came from opening that door during the storm. I was so lost that night, in so many ways, and you found me. We found each other." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play, and Catherine thought about the woman she had been 5 years ago. Driven, successful, wealthy, and desperately unhappy. She had thought she had everything. She had not known she was starving until Derek fed her with simple meals and honest conversation, and the kind of love that did not want anything from her except herself. Jake called out something that made Emma laugh, and Derek squeezed Catherine's hand. This was it. This was everything. Not the penthouse or the company or the Forbes cover. This. Family, love, connection, coming home at the end of every day to people who loved you not for what you could do or give or build, but for who you were. The storm had brought them together, but they had built this themselves. With patience and effort and so much love. Catherine had asked for help that terrible night, and Derek had given her so much more than shelter from the cold. He had given her a home, a family, a life worth living. As they put the kids to bed that night, Emma falling asleep immediately and Jake staying up to read just a few more pages, Catherine watched Derek move through the bedtime routine with such practiced ease and felt overwhelming gratitude. For the storm that forced her off the road. For Derek's light in the darkness. For every choice that led her to this moment. Later, curled up in bed with Derek, his arm around her and his breathing steady, and even Catherine smiled in the darkness. She had spent so many years climbing, striving, pushing herself to be more and do more and have more, and it took getting completely lost in a snowstorm to find her way home. "I love you," she whispered, not sure if Derek was awake to hear it. "I love you too," he murmured back, pulling her closer. "Always." Outside, snow began to fall, just light flurries, nothing like the storm that had brought them together. But Catherine watched it through the window and thought about how something so cold and dangerous had led to such warmth. How getting lost had helped her find everything she never knew she wanted. She fell asleep thinking about the future. About watching Jake graduate, about teaching Emma to be strong and kind, about growing old with Derek in this house they had built together. About a life that was messy and real, and so much better than anything she could have planned. The snow fell softly outside, covering the world in white, making everything new again. And inside, in the warm house, 4 people slept peacefully, a family built from chance and choice and love. Catherine had asked a poor dad for help in a snowstorm, and he had turned out to be everything she wanted, everything she needed, everything that made life worth living. And that, Catherine thought as sleep finally claimed her, was the best kind of success there was.